We're coming back to the studio of the ПЕРШИЙ ЗАХІДНИЙ, the first Western TV channel, thanks to our colleague in Kyiv, who have been working for 13 days and informing you about the most topical and the most verified pieces of news about the war of Russia against Ukraine. We have just had a briefing with the advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, ALEXIORLovsky, who claims that the armed forces of Ukraine have conducted at least 7 counterattacks over the last 24 hours. Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia. The enemy is trying to advance in these areas, but they suffer great losses. Izium has not been taken. Fierce battles are taking place there. Mariupol is standing heroically, and a tank convoy was destroyed there. And we have some pieces from this briefing. So this is a traditional address which we have in the morning. The armed forces of Ukraine and other forces are holding the operation to restrain the enemy on all directions: Kyiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia. The enemy is trying to advance in these areas, but they suffer losses, and artillery and aviation are working in these areas. The information about the fact that the enemy has occupied the Izium city are not right. Battles are taking place right now. Mykolaiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, ТРК are standing. They are fighting the enemy and prevent them from advancing. Their speed of advancement has slowed down, and the advances have almost been stopped. And those who keep moving, they are moving slowly. They are doing the reconnaissance and do not pose a significant threat in comparison to what they actually claim in their messages. It is because they don't have much success in the air and on Earth. They are trying to wage the information warfare. We hear a lot about their advancements, about the occupation of other places, and so on and so forth. This is aimed at decreasing our psychological readiness to defend ourselves. So our task is to hold on and not to believe everything that they say. We are working actively. Our armed forces are fighting against their missiles, against their aviation. The armed forces of Ukraine and other military formation of the armed forces of Ukraine have conducted at least 7 counterattacks over the last 24 hours. Mariupol is standing. They destroyed a tank convoy. And also in the joint forces operation, they also started counterattacks. Our army knows very well what they are doing, and the leadership of the country is doing everything possible to get military, economic, diplomatic, and humanitarian support. As of morning of the 8th of March, the enemy has lost 11,000 personnel, 336 armored vehicles, 56 multiple rocket launch systems, 48 aircraft, 81 helicopters, 474 items of vehicles, 2 speedboats, and also 7 UAVs. Using the opportunity, I would like to congratulate all women in Ukraine on the International Day for Protection of Women's Rights. All men, thank you from our heart, and everything we do for you. So follow our news. Everything will be Ukraine. We're coming back to the studio, and we have now the information about the events all over Ukraine. And meanwhile, we have a guest. This is Alexander Tishchenko, the head of the Lviv Regional Center of Territorial Support. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. You have a very long title. You used to be called the Military Commissariat, and now it's something with a long title. So we have the information that the Lviv Regional Military Administration started the work of the Special Coordination Center for men aged 18 to 60 who have moved to our region. The center works every day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And many people have already registered that. And how does it work with these internally displaced people? Do you look for them, or do they come to you? Well, and who can be actually mobilized? We work with the internally displaced people aged 18 to 60. After they register at the administration or at the city council, they come to us and we register them. Those who are to be mobilized, they are mobilized, and they are sent to the respective units so that they can further perform their military duty. Unfortunately, many people have left homes without their documents, and that's why we have to register them based on their words. Many of them say they have not undergone any military service. We can't check this at the moment, but we do what we can. So if they don't have any passports or a tax code or something, you can't check it. Well, they do have the passports. They have the passports in India, for example. So there's no problem like that, but they don't have this military certificate with their specialization indicated there. And this is an obstacle for us to make sure where a person should be sent. But generally, we don't have any particular problems. Do you have cases when you have men with Russian passports? I'm asking because yesterday, acquaintances of ours were asking how people with a Russian passport can leave Kyiv, and they would like to join the territorial defense, but it's not that easy to join with having Russian passport. Well, we have people with the U.S. passports and Canadian passports, but not Russian passports. Well, that's my next question. What foreigners do we have? We have a battalion, a legion, a foreign legion being shaped at our military polygon. So we have about 300 people already there. These are people with combat experience abroad, not in Ukraine. They fought in Iraq, for example, and in some other wars. These people volunteered to come here, and they are ready to fight on the territory of Ukraine. So this is this international legion. Yesterday we provided some information about that. More than 20,000 people have already volunteered to be a part of that. Let's not talk about the exact figures because we say like 20,000 because the Russian Federation will then claim that NATO forces are fighting for us. You know, there are some countries which have only 20,000 soldiers in total. So we can just say that this is a special international troops. So can you mention the countries? Well, US, Canada, France, we have many people from former Yugoslavia, Lithuania, Poland. These are the two countries which help us the most. We've always thought that Russians were our brothers, but it appears that Poland and Lithuania are much better brothers than them. Well, so why would we actually shy from sending 20,000 people fighting with them? So who is not to be mobilized? So pregnant women, parents who have 3 and more children. Well, there are some situations when, well, for example, a father has 3, 4, 5 children, so can they leave abroad? Well, If a father has 5 children or more, then they are not to be mobilized. Also, people with disabilities, like third group disability, means that they cannot be mobilized, but they will be working somewhere at the warehouse, for example, or doing some other work like that. With the munitions, for example, so they will still be performing their military duty, but not fight exactly, because we know that there are some people who cannot take a gun and start fighting because of their physical limitations, but they can, well, you know, war is not only somewhere there at the front line, so here we also need to do some job, and well, the better we do it, the better it is, the easier it is for our soldiers. So except people with the first and second groups of disability, well, everyone else can do something. Well, if we look at the lines to territorial defense centers, we can see huge lines, and people are even refused from being registered because they had no experience or something like that. What concerns mobilization? Well, what specializations are, well, required and what are not? Well, you know, territorial defense, this is also about territorial defense. So we have a very big mobilization plan right now. People are not refused from being registered there. They are just postponed, because now we need people with military experience, like these 200,000 of people who fought starting since 2014, people who served in the army, people who know how to use weapons, because we have so many people who have not served in the army and they say, I'm ready to go right now, but they have to undergo some training before that. We have registered very many people, more than 5,000, let's say. We do have some proofs of that. Yesterday we had a person who is undergoing the training, and, well, they were talking about that. So these people who don't have any experience, we train them. It's not like Russians do. They just send them to the front lines, well, like, and consider them collateral damage. We want these people to understand how they should act, and after they are trained, they will be sent to the front lines. We now need artillery experts, tank experts, and air defense experts. So these are the specializations which we need the most at the moment. So this is for actually going into counterattack. That's why we need this. I'm not going to say about anything about the counterattack because this is not my competence, but we are preparing people. We are ready for various scenarios. Well, giving a general evaluation, so how would you assess the situation with mobilization? Are there many people whom you need to find who are trying to escape and so on? Well, you see, people who are conscious, they go to the military commissariats, and the lines keep standing there. Well, we have been fighting for 11 days, and people keep coming and coming and coming. We have already sent 20,000 people from Lviv region, and people still keep coming. We sent the notices, the summons to some people for them not to forget about mobilization, because today I noticed traffic jams in Kyiv because people started relaxing here in Lviv, and they have forgotten that there are fights taking place in Kyiv, and there's no Irpin, for example, anymore. People started living their regular life, so I guess people have to understand that we keep fighting. There's no peace in the country. We're in the state of war. And then we'll have no traffic jams anymore, and everyone will be ready to, well, I hope nothing will happen in Lviv, of course. I do support you. So what about those people who are being trained right now? Can you explain the structure itself? Because we often hear things like the boys have been mobilized, we're looking for the bulletproof vests and for helpment because they are immediately sent to Bucha, to Irpin, to Kharkiv. If people have no combat experience, how does it happen? Well, a person comes to us. Unfortunately, at the moment, we have some problems with the uniform, but we have talked to our leadership, and they know about this problem, and then keep working on that. Because we do have the problem with uniform, with bulletproof vests. It's not a problem that appeared yesterday. It's the problem that we used to have since 1991, because at that time everyone forgot about the army, and now we start recalling that we do have an army in the country. So we do have a problem with that, but as far as I know, it has been solved because many people buy bulletproof vests and send them to the armed forces. So there's no strategic problem, like they have nothing to eat or something like that. They do have what to eat. Yes, we have a problem with bulletproof vests and with uniform, but I think in a day or two the problem will be solved. Well, I started asking you what happens when a person comes to the polygon, and then they start the training, well, according to their specialization. So whether they are, well, for example, driving in a tank, so how to shoot. This is the tactics that is being taught to them. And then if they get to artillery, for example, they are taught to operate that machinery. If they get into another unit, they are working on some other skills. So everyone is practicing the skills that they have to perfect. If they have to work with NLAW, then they have the special training for operation of NLAWs. So they undergo the training and they learn how to operate javelins. There are computers with the simulators where they study and train to do these things. So after they finish training, so what they do? Do they get to uniform and everything? Well, they get everything here and then they go to the front lines. But as far as I know, the armed forces still have enough bulletproof vests. We've talked to the representatives of the armed forces who are there. One of our correspondents had to go there, and they say that they have no problems with food, with munitions. Of course, there might be some problems with some socks or something like that, but this is not a big problem. But when it comes to helmets and bulletproof vests, this is probably the biggest problem. And we had the representatives of humanitarian hubs today, and they say that everyone is complaining there is not enough of these things. So how do we solve this problem? Because we are even starting to produce bulletproof vests here in Lviv. Well, I'm telling you once again, we are cooperating with businesses, and our regional military administration is doing a lot using their connections with their partners abroad. We're importing bulletproof vests from abroad. We have one batch that has been already delivered, and other batches are coming. It's just that we needed some time to do that. But I think in some 2-3 days, everything will be solved, because now you say that Lviv will be producing bulletproof vests here, and my acquaintances are going now to Poland because they produce bulletproof vests as well. So they will bring them here, they will test them. If they are good enough, they will also produce bulletproof vests here. Another thing that is needed very much, these are medications. So do you know what is needed by those who are going to the front lines? Well, I can't tell you for sure because our hospital has everything they need, and I know that today, for example, we got 2 boxes, and I will give these boxes to those who need. So if someone who needs them hears me, then please meet me. I have everything. I have tourniquet case and everything that is needed at the front lines. I do have these things. If you need them, well, come to me and I'll give you the whole box, and another box will be delivered to another military unit. And I would like to remind you that we are talking to Alexander Tishchenko, the head of the Lviv Regional Center for support, military support. Now the question of IDPs. When you walk through the streets of Lviv, we see there's life going on, but it's well, significantly because of those people coming here. If they do not go to the military commissariat themselves, so are you looking for them or what? Well, those people who have not been registered, I think we will solve this problem in a couple of days, because we will have a special unit who will actually register these people, and they will be sent to protect Kyiv and Luhansk, the places they came from, because our guys from Lviv are ready to go there, and they come here to Lviv and they say they will be protecting Lviv, but let them protect Kyiv and Luhansk and other cities where they actually come from. So this was well, we used to have a talk with Stepan Kuybida here, and we were talking about the economy in Lviv, and the Lviv military administration said that they will be addressing you with a request to be more well, liberal in regard to those people, those men who work on strategic enterprises here, because we do understand that if a company stops operating, that means that like 15% of people might go abroad. Some of them will be conscripted and mobilized to go to the hotspots in the country, and it appears that those men who are, well, doing some important jobs for the region will stop working as well, and then, well, the company will not work at all. Well, all the enterprises that work for the defense fence of the country, they will keep working. We're not mobilizing anyone from these enterprises. We have a number of enterprises which, for example, they provide some important things. They support the military, the armed forces of Ukraine. So we're not talking about mobilizing the people working there at all. There are people who still work for the benefits of the defense. We have the head of the regional military administration, so we communicate with them concerning people, concerning transportation of these companies. We've discussed various matters, and those people who define some strategic areas of development of these companies and enterprises, so we won't take them. So we should, as a TV company, we shouldn't worry that we will stay without the editors and operators who help us do our job. We all know that when it comes to war, mass media is one of the weapons. This is about operators, this is about the journalists who do a lot for our victory right now. Alexander, I wanted to ask you about transportation. We have the heads of departments in all areas. They say that most of the transportation is used for military matters and needs. So do you have any problems with, for example, fuel to bring the soldiers to the polygon or something like that? No, we have no problem with that. The administration has been dealing with these problems. We tell them, you know, we need to transport 1,200 people. No problem. The vehicles have been filled with fuel, and that's it. So we have already mobilized 340 items of vehicles and sent them to the military unit. Do you have any information about the injured? I don't have information like that. We do have some injured soldiers, and we've seen the ambulances here in the city where the soldiers are being brought to our hospital, military hospital in Lviv, because Kyiv and Kharkiv are being bombarded, so they are treated here. But I can't tell you about the figures, but I know that they are being brought here. And I have the traditional question, so what is it there something you would like to tell our audience that we haven't asked you about? Well, I would like to wish everyone peace and victory, of course, with our victory. For Ukraine to go back to its original borders, for our children to stop dying, everything will be Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes, Alexander Tishchenko, the head of the Lviv Regional Territorial Center for Social Support. Thank you for finding the time to visit us, and while the center is working with our men and calling them to their duty, we are helped by Americans who teach the residents of Lviv to provide first aid. Let's watch a video about that.
Хто сьогодні був? Діжак була, Тишковець була, і то і я, і там ввечері діти. А хто завтра буде? Я вже сплуталася. Треба подивитися зараз. Якщо тобі треба щось зробити, то я можу прикладати. Що? Якщо тобі треба щось зробити, я можу прикладати. Я потім допишу. Ти що на громадському нараді перекладаєте? Ні, я перекладаю, щоб діти не на телевізорі. Раді транслюють на YouTube. В онлайні? Може тут дійсно домовитися вийти, що ми також онлайн робили. Щоб не треба було ходити сюди кожного. Тобто дуже часто, коли наприклад, онлайн я можу, наприклад, зранку теж. Я просто, в мене малий дома сидить. Я не можу, поки чоловік піде на роботу, я не можу лишити. Але онлайн мені простіше. Більше. Так само зараз на дорогу йде часу багато. Таксі не можна взяти нормально.
Back to the operational situation. So we were talking about the equipment for Lviv region. This information you will be able to watch once again, and soon we will have the news about the Americans who are giving help to Lvivians, who are teaching how to provide the first aid assistance. We're going to talk about the entrepreneurship and everything that you're interested in right now. This general stuff is saying that there is a still high military alert in the territory of Belarus, and there is still high possibility for them to participate in the military action. The Staff General says that there have been recruitment of the armed forces of Belarus in Brest Donetsk region, the tank brigade, and 103rd Separate Marines Brigade of Belarus. Also near Alexandrivka region, district, 2 armed force vehicle brigades, and the Staff General says that main forces of occupants are focused on Kiev city, Mariupol, Mykolaiv, and to get the entrance to Luhansk and Donetsk regions. We have been already talking about that today in the morning, and we had discussion of Petrochelok, our military expert. You can find this video in our YouTube channel. We had information about sabotage actions in western Ukraine. We know that we can expect from Vladimir Putin everything. And Lviv, we are here quite calm, but we should stay alert because you never know what to expect from that person. Bucha and so the situation in the occupied cities and Irpin, people are begging for help. We have reports on the massacre and violence the occupants are doing there. They have no electricity there, no central heating there. He has addressed to the international community to assist with prevention of humanitarian crisis. These cities are holding the defense, but it's very difficult. They are taken by occupants, and there's huge difficulty with provide the humanitarian needs. And they are shelling the cities from different types of weapons. Irpin, it's the center of a humanitarian crisis. The corridor is needed to help people to get out of the city. And unfortunately, because of such a humanitarian crisis in Mariupol, 1 baby died because of the baby that passed away because of dehydration. And these cruel crimes are detected all around Ukraine, in all the locations where the military actions are taking place, and we hope that these crimes will be punished by Hague court. People are going on the streets with a peaceful demonstrations. We were showing you lots of videos from these places when people come on the streets and barehanded trying to show they are against that, saying, screaming, shouting, glory to Ukraine. They wouldn't let the occupants pass. The cars are signaling in Kherson, supporting to the demonstrants. In Mykolaiv, in the center of the city, you can see this demonstration, which you can see on the streets. The people wrapping into the Ukrainian flags, going outside on the streets, saying glory to Ukraine, shouting glory to Ukraine, trying to kick the occupants away from their land. The Prosecutor General of Germany started the investigation on crimes of Russia in Ukraine. We are talking about Prosecutor General of Peter Frank, and they are saying about the prosecution of gathering the evidences which could be later on used during the case about the bombs, using the bombs, the forbidden type of the bombs, shelling the nuclear residuals. Also, the investigators will be focused on the Chechen mercenaries divisions about their activities. And there are also in this list of the investigators, we can find a couple of surnames of people who were attempting to assassinate Vladimir Zelensky. There are also some Ukrainian politicians there, and we now know that Vladimir Zelensky is the target number one for Russian occupants. So the crimes against the humanity which took place all around the world. So we had this they have this type of crimes that form the precedent. So the European Court on Human Rights already started investigation, and they are going through the materials being sent from Ukraine. And all the information, the recording of all and gathering of all the materials in case is now very substantial in order to make this happen. And we hope that Russian Federation will be responsible for that crimes. Ukrainian Railway opened the center of transportation of humanitarian cargoes. Also, you have possibility to deliver the cargoes by the trucks for the military and humanitarian needs for the citizens who are suffering from the humanitarian crisis. On the Sevastopolska street, you can have this, there is a hub open, and we were talking yesterday that Lviv right now, we are on the verge of our capacities on reception of refugees and humanitarian cargoes. You can find the information here on how we manage with the cargoes, with the deliveries, and how we distribute them later on to the places they are needed. And also from that hub, you can pick up the cargoes by cars, by vehicles, and by trucks. The menace of nuclear explosion is still, of the nuclear threat still exists. And there is a center open to keep an eye on the situation at our nuclear power plants, in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and Chernobyl power plant. And Russian Federation still threatening all the world with this menace. And Putin is capable to anything. He's capable of make some sabotage on the nuclear power plants. So we have to be careful in order to be ready to these possible steps from the Russian side. Also, we have the information from the borders. The procedure of crossing the border is now the maximally simplified, and people, in order to transport the humanitarian cargoes, is now very easy to do, to get them to the points, to the hubs and warehouses. The procedure of crossing the border to the volunteers who are helping to deliver the goods is now simplified. This decision was taken by the governments in order to provide the supply, the quickest possible supply of the humanitarian cargoes, and also the cargoes for armed forces of Ukraine, the medical cargoes, and the humanitarian aid cargoes. How can you receive this type of permit, being the driver from 18 to 60 years? So the carrier has to apply to the Ministry of Infrastructure or regional or Kiev military administration in order to get such a permit. And the decisions on such applications are being sent to the customs office to provide such permits to the carriers and the drivers who are willing to help with the transportation of cargoes. All this information will be sent to the state customs service in order to the customs officers be able to control and monitor the drivers from 18 to 60 years old to check which are the grounds for these drivers to cross the border, or whether they are delivering some humanitarian goods, munition, or anything else. And we were talking with Alexander Tishchenko and with our representatives of volunteers, because now we experience lack of bulletproof vests, the helmets, the munition. So there is some and in Lviv soon we're going to produce the bulletproof vests here in Lviv in one of our factories, and now some equipment is relocated from eastern Ukraine to produce this munition here to Lviv, and later on this equipment, this munition will be sent to the eastern Ukraine. Mikhailo Podolyak, the advisor to President, they said that Russian made our children the children of war because they are forced to stay in their basements, to sleep there. And they see the occupants, the armed occupants who act as looters. And Podolyak is texting in his Twitter, and we can just share the information in our media when we see the pictures of Ukrainian children covered in blood, or the children who are forced to cross the border themselves to flee the territory of Ukraine. I'm sure this story has already crossed all the world, about the 11-year-old boy who had to cross the border by himself because his mother, who wasn't unable to leave the country, had to send him alone because there are many children in his family. So this boy with a number, with a telephone, only with having just a telephone number written on his arm, had to cross the border. So lots of media have been showing this picture. To review the laws to interfere the Russian aggression took place. So there are lots of laws now, the bills which are pending. And it's been said that the deputies are now collecting all these urgent bills to vote them later on, to pass them later on. And these bills are around the economical sector, to stop the aggression, and he cannot say for sure what's needed. They cannot reveal for sure which type of bills are that, because it's going to be a nice surprise. And the session of the Parliament will be held in the closed doors. We will be able to report later on. We know that before the Parliament have already held these type of sessions, and 14 laws had been taken, very important for our state, especially concerning collaboration with the occupants, the state treason, and very important things which are crucial at this point for our situation we are now in. Please keep in mind for the men from 18 to 60 which came to Lviv region, for you the military administration reminds you again that there is a separate center of the separate center that you can find at the address Veterаны Street. Please address there with your documents. And so we had Alexander Tishenko here in studio, so he already had given you some idea on how is it going. And soon we will have some departments who will be looking for this type of people, this type of men who are hiding from their military duties. And these people will be sent back to their region, or they should get involved into Lviv region territorial defense. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Reznikov, had given a report on losses of Russian soldiers. He said that during 13 days, the Russian occupants killed 38 Ukrainian children, and more than 70 had been injured. There are more than 800 civilians injured. In Mariupol, 400,000 Ukrainians are kept as hostages, and one child died because of dehydration, just because the occupants do not let the humanitarian cargoes, do not allow the humanitarian cargoes to be delivered. They are shelling the cities, and the situation is really on the verge of the humanitarian catastrophe. Russian occupants had destroyed more than 200 Ukrainian schools. If I'm not wrong, the Ministry of Education of Ukraine said 234 schools, 34 hospitals. Alexei Reznikov addressing to Russians and addressing to the world community, saying, where is your humane attitude? And we now need the help, and this help costs billions of dollars. And a couple of more days, and the losses of Russian with killed and injured will be more than in Afghanistan. And now we want to highlight that Europe now has a chance to defeat the tyrant, which is threatening Europe for lots of years. Please, all the free world, don't stay aside. Don't be afraid. You should help Ukraine and to defeat the occupant. And now we have the video here where the military woman is addressing to the occupants to get away from the territory of Ukraine, to get away from the territory of independent state. So, Russian soldier, you thought Ukrainian girls will meet you with flowers? No, we have chance to fight. We are ready to fight. Can you hear us, you bastard? We are ready to shoot. Surrender until it's not too late. And you should know, you little boy, our women have the balls bigger than you do. Happy 8th of March. Glory to Ukraine.
Героям слава, емоційно звертаються наші військові до російського окупанта, але розуміємо,
We do
що
understand
з такими військовими ми
with
встоїмо і точно переможемо.
the army like that, we will definitely win.
And
We have the latest address of our president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and seeing how aggressive he is towards the international organizations, we have been asking to close the sky and to support us, not only politically and diplomatically, but also militarily. So let's watch the latest address by Volodymyr Zelensky and pay special attention to his stresses and to what he says to the international community. Dear Ukrainians, on this day we usually congratulate everyone on the holiday of spring, of women, our wives, our mothers. every year, but not this one. Today, I cannot but say, well, I cannot say traditional words. I cannot just congratulate you. When we have so many deaths, so much grief, so much sorrow, so much suffering, when we have a full-scale war, a terrorist war against our nation, against the people of Ukraine, the occupiers shelled Sumy again, our peaceful city that has never threatened Russia ever in its history. It's quiet Sumy region which is turned into hell. Mariupol, a peaceful and laborious city. It is besieged, it is blocked, and they are trying to exhaust people, they are torturing people, the occupiers are disconnecting people from communications, they deprive them of food and water, organize blackouts. For the first time over dozens of years, probably since the Nazi invasion, a child died because of dehydration in Mariupol. So, dear partners, please hear me. A child died of dehydration in 2022. We have been fighting for 13 days already. We have been destroying the occupiers everywhere we can. But there is the sky, hundreds of Russian cruise missiles, of Russian fighter jets, of their helicopters. Yes, we are eliminating and destroying them. But over the last 30 years, Russia has not lost as many aircraft as they did over these 13 days. But they still have enough machines to kill people. They have enough missiles to terrorize people. They have enough 500-kilogram bombs to drop them on us. On regular people, Chernihiv, Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv, Poltava, Zhytomyr, dozens and dozens of Ukrainian cities, millions of peaceful Ukrainian civilians. 13 days when we hear only promises, 13 days when we just hear that we will soon have help in the skies, we'll have the aircraft, we'll get them. The blame for every death of every civilian in Ukraine, in the blocked cities, from the bombs is definitely on the hands of the Russian state, on the hands of the Russian soldiers, those who give criminal orders and those who perform these criminal orders, those who violate all the rules of war, those who consciously destroy Ukrainian people. The blame is on the occupiers, but the responsibility is also on those who has not been able to take the decision for 13 days, somewhere in the West, somewhere in an office, those who still cannot protect Ukrainian sky from Russian killers, those who can't save our cities from the fighter airplanes, those who don't help us release besieged cities. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who are on the verge of dying, and this is really so. It's not just some calls. We need this aircraft, air defense. This is needed to protect lives. We've heard many promises and many guarantees, and we've seen many agreements on the creation of humanitarian corridors to save our people in Mariupol, but they have not worked. None of them have worked, and I don't have time to wait. We don't have time to wait. Mariupol doesn't have time to wait. People there don't have time. The occupiers want our people to die. We don't want that. We sent the convoys with humanitarian support to Mariupol. We sent the vehicles to evacuate people, to save people. The drivers understand that. They are heroic people who understand that the Russian troops may just shoot them on the way, as they have killed people who were just trying to get to a safe ground and to leave the war zone. But if you shoot at this transportation and these people, all world will see this. Everyone will be the witness of that, and everyone will hold it against you. I repeat, everyone who gives these inhuman orders and those who perform these orders will be brought to responsibility, will be condemned. We've seen how they were organizing the evacuation corridor for people in Sumy, and these were not only Ukrainians but also citizens of India and of China, students who studied in Sumy. The International Red Cross prohibited us from using the emblems on the vehicles who do these humanitarian missions. It's the International Red Cross, as if it's their property, and this is very indicative. This tells us a lot about the fact that some influential people decided to neglect Ukrainians, but we will never allow that. I will never allow that. Our friends are with us, and I will be talking to all nations in the world, and the leaders in the world will not do their best to stop this war, to stop this genocide. Of course, we keep talking to our partners. Of course, we keep talking to the leaders, to the parliamentarians in all countries who know how to help Ukraine. We have a very intense day. I've talked to the president of Lithuania. The people of Lithuania stand side by side with Ukrainians in this fight, and we value their assistance. I talked to the president of the European Council, our friend Charles Michel. I've talked to the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi. But there are some problems which cannot be solved in the negotiations. They don't depend on us, but they depend on humanity, which has to win in leading capitals. It has to overcome fear. It has to overcome any conclusions, and then we'll see that Ukrainian sky is safe. Ukrainian cities are unblocked. We can do this together as people, together with the world. And if the world stands aside, it will lose itself forever. For there are some unconditional values which are the same for everyone. And first of all, this is life, the right to life for each and everyone. This is what we have been fighting for in Ukraine. Our army does that. This is what they want to deprive us of. This is what the whole world should protect. Glory to Ukraine. And we're coming back to the studio of the PERШИЙ ЗАХІДНИЙ, the first Western channel. As we have mentioned, it is unacceptable for a child to die of dehydration in Mariupol in 2022, just because the Russian occupiers are blocking any humanitarian supplies there, and people are staying there. Thousands of people can't get out of those places where they were promised to be evacuated, despite the promises of these Russian occupiers in the second and third round of negotiations. And we have a new guest in our studio. This is ALEXIORLovsky, who's the director of the Program Initiative Democratic Practice of the International Renaissance Foundation. Hello, welcome to our studio. This is the first time you are here, unfortunately for the first time under these conditions, but thank you for coming. So your initiative is to support local democracies and the civil society. Many initiatives have been reformatted right now. So what are you doing now to support not just the local democracy, but self-organization of people? How do you assess the situation? And how organized are Ukrainians in various regions right now? I should mention that about 2 weeks before the beginning of war, I was in Mariupol, in Kramatorsk, in Severodonetsk, and I drove through all those places like Volnovakha and Volodar, where the battles are taking place right now. And I would like to confirm that there live people who really want to have peace, people who want to live in Ukraine and who want to live in good conditions, the ones that they used to have before the occupiers came here. And this is the key thing, because during all previous years, the International Renaissance Foundation in general and my program in particular have been helping people to organize themselves and in some cases to use their cooperation with local authorities to solve some humanitarian matters in places where they live. So local democracy, local initiatives, public hearings, meetings, self-organization, and so on and so forth. This is what we have been supporting and what was the basis for the civil society, which at the moment I'm convinced is bringing its results. And this moment of self-organization which we see in the society right now, well, of course there are many factors, but I can say that the Renaissance Foundation has added its brick to this wall that we have at the moment. And what we see now in Kherson region, when, for example, our partners with whom we have been working for a long time are going to the pro-Ukrainian rallies despite everything that is taking place outside the cities, and the fact that these cities still stand and they maintain their position despite the missile systems attacking them. This is very important. I wanted to ask you about Kherson first of all, because we have been talking a lot about the fact that the occupiers expected that in Kherson they would be met with the red carnations, and the occupiers were met in a totally different way. But we have a very urgent briefing from the Lviv Regional Military Administration, and after that we will come back to the studio. They have been suffering from missiles, and our armed forces are protecting our lands. This is the south and central Ukraine and eastern Ukraine. The head of the military administration, Maxim Kozlitsky, is doing everything he can for us to create the comfortable conditions for people fleeing these regions. And we use both the state-owned sector, the governmental sector, and the private sector here. When we talk about the number of people we have received here, so yesterday it was about 10,000 people. Part of them stayed here, part of them moved on and went further abroad. In the region, we have now about 100 to 110,000 places for temporary stay of people suffering from war, from the war with Russia. And as of today, we can say that about 80% or 92,000 places are occupied. We are now actively working on deploying additional places, additional spots, using the governmental sector as much as possible. We'll be involving the cultural institutions to that. And when it comes to functioning of the governmental sector, I should say that it's operating quite stably, well, without any disruptions. So I can, I'm sure for that, we have the energy carriers, salaries being paid, and which concerns the first 2 months of the year, so the budget has been performed for January and February. We have funds in our budget, and we do understand that in March we'll have probably well, some lack, but not that big one, but we definitely have enough funds to cover the governmental sector, and we might need to use the reserve fund of the original budget. But during the first days we did great, and we still do well when it comes to maintaining the operation of the region, and we are addressing people for help because we need to accept everyone, we need to provide them with food and with some places to stay. So we actually use the help of many people, and we would like to thank all the volunteers, and we would like to thank for the humanitarian assistance which we receive from abroad. But there are also some pressing issues we have to solve right now, and I'm sure we'll be working on that by using the funds of the basic budgets. We'll be communicating with the heads of territorial communities, because the military administration does not only coordinate all the processes in the region. We would like to share this responsibility with the communities, and they are actually doing that. Local communities, the heads of the communities are working on that as well, because we are now at the stage where, for example, if we have more than 100,000 people in Lviv region, this is really a lot of people, and we will keep increasing the number of people, and these are very different people. Some people can afford to buy some food or some things, but there are people who need help, and they can get these things from our humanitarian hub. So we get many calls, and our heads of the departments get many calls, and also our hubs get many calls, which actually even distract their attention. That, like, questions like, where's the hub, where can we bring something, where can we take something? Well, we would like to ask you, please use the website of the Lviv military administration to find the information there. Use our Telegram channel. We have Facebook pages of the head of the administration and of the deputies, because if we answer each and every call with questions, where to get something, where to bring something, where is the humanitarian hub, and so on and so forth, you're just taking our time, which we could use in a better way. And then the next thing is, if we talk about the problems that we have in the budget sphere. So we had holidays in schools, but starting from Monday we should start classes again, and all employees, all staff members have been involved into something, and we keep working on getting the humanitarian aid, and the Department of Education has been doing a lot, but we should not forget about the fact that the educational process should resume since Monday, so we should think of how to organize that. Most probably this will be not on-site study, but online classes. We'll think of how to organize the process in the right way. What concerns various categories of children who have arrived here, Volodymyr Lis will tell you about some more specific questions, like the orphans, people without parental care, and so on and so forth. So everyone who's arrived here, they have clothes, and they, well, children, for example, with special needs from the specialized schools and so on. So they have been allocated to local schools. When we talk about children from 0 to 3 years of age, our houses for children have also accepted all children they could accept. We do understand that the load on the budgetary sector in the region is huge at the moment, and we ask you to address this with understanding, and we ask this everyone, starting from a librarian to the head of the regional hospital or any other institution. Please be caring to anyone who escaped this war and came here. I'm sure we will manage. Thank you, and we have also a specification. So these displaced children, they will get these distance classes like children from Lviv. Well, we don't have our children and somebody else's children. All those children who came here, they are officially allocated to those children who used to study here before. For example, let's take school number 100. They used to have like 75 children, so we added 30 more children, and now they have 100 children in this school. So, I mean, there's children with special needs, and they just joined other children, and they are being worked with the teachers, and they will get food and so on and so forth, and the subventions from the state budget and the funds from the local budget are received regularly, and people shouldn't worry about that. The financing is taking place as usual, so I'm sure we'll manage. In the region we have humanitarian hubs. So what kind of humanitarian assistance has been provided and what is needed right now? Well, I can't tell you the exact figures at the moment because they are very dynamic, and especially when it comes to humanitarian matters, we have a special structural subdivision, and we have the deputies of the head of the military administration who specialize in working with these hubs, and we also have many volunteers there. We have humanitarian hubs, so we have warehouses, everything is registered, everything is controlled, and we are grateful for any assistance. There are many matters which are discussed, like why some assistance is brought to directly somewhere instead of the hub, because everything has to be registered, everything has to be accounted for, so we can't just unload and load something. We need to understand what has been brought and where it's going further. So using the capabilities of the central government through the office of the president, we have some requests, and we shape the composition of the batches that we send, and we would like to thank Укрзалізниця, the Ukrainian railways, which help us a lot in this and allow us to provide assistance systematically. Yuri Buchok has been cooperating with them, and they have been delivering the cargoes with food products and with medications to the places where they are most needed. So it's not only the trucks and buses that are used for those purposes, but also the trains, and I'm very grateful for that. So when it comes to humanitarian hubs and humanitarian warehouses, our website contains all the addresses in 7 districts, and we ask you not to bring everything to Kopernika Street, because somehow everyone brings it to Kopernika Street because everyone thinks that it's only there and nowhere else. Those who watch us, those who listen to us, please remember that there are many places in the district. I'll call it, well, the IDPs. I don't want to offend anyone. We have our beloved Ukrainians here who are temporarily living, for example, in Mostyska. Then they might come to Lviv. People come here, they go to the railway station, and we will be improving the situation. We have many ideas about that, because some people come to the railway station and they need some psychological support, and we also need to find a warm place for them and to feed them. People who get off the train at the railway station, you know, every third person needs someone to accompany them, to take them by the hand and to explain what's going on and to show what is where, because many people need personal support. And thanks to the head of the military administration and to the who talks to dozens of ambassadors and consuls every day, and other people, we are trying to receive assistance from the US and from Europe. All countries are trying to help, so we are thinking of making a mini center for provision of medical assistance next to the railway station, where we'll provide this first aid to many people at the same time, because we have a lot of medical specialists in the region, but we need to have 1, 2, or 3 ambulances, or maybe even 10 family doctors who can be there in place. They will be able to help. Of course, if people need a more specific assistance, like a surgery, for example, we do have the military hospital, a modular hospital on the territory of the region. It is being erected right now, and I think that the head of the military administration will visit it today or tomorrow, and as soon as it is opened, so we will announce this information. It will be guarded. This is what was provided to us by our partners, by the countries who support us. So a lot is being done, but we need to create a system. There are so many people willing to help, and the structure of Lviv military administration is not the same as the one that was in the Lviv regional administration. We now need to change our approaches to work, and every day brings us closer to the victory, and we ask all of you to have understanding for the fact that sometimes we cannot answer you in time, and we need some time, a minute or two, to react, because people who used to do totally different things are working now with the military matters. And we have a question: what is the situation at the border with Poland right now, and what are the lines there? Well, as usual, Krakivets checkpoint is the most busy one at the moment. Together with our Polish counterparts, we have agreed to extend and to speed up the capabilities of the checkpoints. You know about that because we've been talking about that. The procedure is very, very simple. A person can cross the border with passport alone, but there are so many people there. Every day, well, a different number of people crosses the border. Today, as of today, the total number of people who have left the country is about 1.5 million people, and this figure will be increasing because Sumy, Melitopol, and Dnipro, I think people will be escaping these places. Kyiv, women and children are leaving these places. I'm very happy that men, well, I would like to, well, use the chance that we have the 8th of March today. I'm happy that women do receive flowers today and not men. And some of them were afraid for themselves and didn't want to, fight for their country or for their children, but there are not so many of them. So I think in a couple of days no one will be going anywhere, and those who left the country, those who temporarily left their homes, will be able to come back to their cities, their towns, their villages, their districts. We will definitely prevail. There is the information. Are there any volunteers on our side of the border? Because we know that on the Polish side there are people helping with food and so on. What about our side? Yesterday, well, again, when there are so many people, you need to have systematic approach. We can't. When we have 1,000 or 2,000 people crossing the border, we can't put just 10 small tents and have warm tea there. So this has to be systematic. And we have now developed, together with the UN, who help us to organize special spots there. They will be located along the road coming to the border. So similarly to what they have on the Polish side, we'll have it here. How many of them? Well, yesterday in the evening we agreed that starting from today, together with the state emergency service, will define the places where these tents will be located, and I think that by the end of the day we will have quite many of them. I have another question. Yesterday, Andriy Sadovay said that Lviv is on the verge of its possibilities in terms of hosting the internally displaced people. What is the situation in the region, and where do you direct people first of all? Well, you know, I wouldn't like to comment on what the mayor says, but I would ask the city of Lviv to be more active in helping find accommodation for Ukrainians who come here from central and southern regions, because we do have now a lot of reserves in the city of Lviv where we could host people, but we often hear from the representatives of the city council, let's send people to the districts. Well, this sounds like, well, they are trying to shift the responsibility, so I'm asking the leaders of Lviv and also large communities in the region to take an active stance, to take the responsibility and not look at somebody else. Every city, every town should have their own clear vision and their reserves as to where to host people. These people don't want some luxury suites. They don't want any extra conditions. They want to have a place where they can have shower, where they can have some rest, where they can put their things. They don't have so many things with them, in fact, and where they can stay for a day or two. And then after that, of course, these people either look for accommodation themselves, if they can find it. If they can't find it, then we have the hubs and the centers and coordinators who help them with some halls of residence, with some private houses, in villages, in towns and townships. We have a lot of municipal property, and I would like to ask the heads of all communities to try to revise all the property that they have, especially the one that is 90-95% ready, where you can invest not so much money, well, from the sponsors or even from the budget to finish these objects and to let people live there. A special attention to women and children, and also to elderly people. Because I've encountered the situation where there is a family, well, 3 people, and the man has nowhere to live because there is the woman and 2 children, and the man starts, well, arguing, why are you not doing that? So we need to, well, approach these things with understanding, because with such rates as we have right now, we may last for another week, and then we'll have a lot of problems, because we can't accommodate people anywhere. So there have to be some, at least basic conditions there. We still have some reserves, we are working on them. So some 18 to 20,000 places are still vacant, but please don't tell us that you should send people there or you should send people to the villages. Okay, we will bring people there and they will stay there for a day, 2 or 3, and what's next? In those places where there is infrastructure, where there are some basic conditions for living, and the closer they are to some social and infrastructural objects, well, those are the places where people would like to be, not somewhere remotely where they have no centralized water supply, no water disposal, and no other conditions. So let's think what we can help with. And there are many institutions which are not using their full capability. They have like 70% of their capability, so don't leave these reserves, let people live there. I have a question to Volodymyr. At the moment, we have hosted almost 200,000 people, and on the Ukrainian border, well, almost 600,000 people have crossed the border. The work on their protection has started since the first day. Well, glory to Ukraine. I would like to say that from the first day, we had massive flows of people. The protest was uncontrolled. Today, we have normalized the process. We asked all our partners to provide us with the information about them, and the Ministry of Social Policy checks this information, because there will be time when we will have to get people back. Some people are asking for a refugee status, but when they get the status, that means that they are not controlled by this country anymore. So it's inadmissible, because some children, for example, they were sent by parents abroad just to be safe there, but the border service knows about these things. People who are crossing the border with children, so it is checked whether there is a permission to let them go there, and well, and there has to be an authorized person who will accompany the child abroad. So at the moment, we've had already some cases where the groups were detained at the border and they could not understand why they are not allowed to cross the border. One of the reasons is what Ivan mentioned, because when there are groups of children with teachers or well, doctors, there are men going with them aged 18 to 60, and they don't understand why they cannot cross the border, but they have to stay here. Nevertheless, they start complaining about that. And we also have now more cases when children are trying to cross the border without parents. Especially we have cases when a person who was supposed to accompany them is ill, or the parents just put the child on the train so that they are safe. So when you know about underage children without an adult accompanying them, please call police or call the social service, and these children will be provided with assistance and with support. This is an important information we have to explain to people, because over the last 2 days we had 6 cases where underage children came to Lviv region without anyone there, and the number of these children may increase. And we know that there are some centers which are trying to help us find children like that and bring them here. And also children who cross the border as a part of organized groups. These are children aged 0 to 18 years old. These are those children who are living in the children's homes. They are, for example, the children's homes, Hippocrates will be evacuated to Germany. There are fewer than 40 children there. They have now received protection in Lviv region, and then they will be moving to the Western Europe. And there are some other homes that have moved here, and we have some reserves as well. And when it comes to our network and to the reserves of our educational networks, so we are ready to host about 3,000 children as organized groups or as separate children with the respective statutes. I should mention that not all groups want to go abroad, and therefore we now have more than 500 children in our region who refused, and the legal representatives did not allow them to cross the border, and they are staying in Ukraine. And we also have several institutions for children that did not want to go abroad, because there may be children from 0 to 23 years old, so these are students. They did not want to leave these children behind, and they are staying here. So they are staying here. We have several families accepting children, and we also have a whole center from Lysychansk and an adoptive parents waiting to get a permission to host them. And we work non-stop, and also the adoptive families will be helping. We need about 1 to 3 days to shape the group to find places for these children. Those children who are a part of the organized groups from the schools for orphans or for children with special needs, we have found places for them already, and we have some proposals from our partners. Some of them may be sent to Georgia, and we're together with the Department of Social Protection are working on other options to send organized groups to other countries. We have some fakes about the simplified procedure of adoption of children. Tell us why it's not so. Thank you. In fact, at the moment, adoption is impossible. This is about temporary hosting children. If children came here without parents, it doesn't mean they are orphans. Their parents may be somewhere in the basement. They may be somewhere at the front lines. The parents may be alive. I don't know who actually started these fakes. Maybe it's to share panic, to spread panic that we have a problem with orphans. We have many people calling from abroad. Children are afraid of addressing to some services because they're afraid that someone from abroad might adopt them. So we don't know who's actually spreading this panic. The service for children's matters work in every district, in every region. They cooperate with police and they inform the respective social services. We provide them with social protection, and we'll be looking for their relatives. Do you have enough staff who would be working on Lviv region? At the moment, we would like to thank the students of our universities who come to us. These are the Ivano-Franko National University of Lviv students and students from other places, because children come from various regions of Ukraine. They are stressed, and these people work with them round the clock. We have round the clock support. Those who want to work with children, to support their teachers, we let them do that. If you would like to help, call us 235-3436. We will find a place for you as well, so you can also help with us. What countries do children go to in organized groups? Well, most of them went to our neighbors in Poland, then Slovakia, Italy, and also we have a group of children going to Germany and the Netherlands. Thank you. Have there been any cases where the residents of Lviv adopted children from other regions? I've told you that the process of adoption is a long one. You need to get a court decision, and it takes place after 30 days of this decision. But if this child has the status of an orphan, well, we have a database, a national database. It works in the manual mode right now, so we can do some things in it. We can find temporary homes for these children, but adoption requires the context, the procedure, the hearing. Everyone is working on this, so adoption is not taking place at the moment.
Back to studio of the first Western channel, and we had the information from Lviv military administration, and we are back to the studio with ALEXIORLovsky, International Fund. So your investments to the work of the fund, Відродження, resurrection, do you think your investments were effective on the work during the welfare of our Lviv region, because people are ready to stop even Russian tanks? I'm totally convinced that before we go to the next report, even the International Fund Resurrection, відродження, for sure made its investment to build up the community in Ukraine, the society in Ukraine, and what we can see now in the communities nowadays is the result of our work, also partially it's like a small brick. We made something, of course we had our historical background, first Maidan, second Maidan, so it's something that put our society together, and also it's some way of self-education, self-discipline, the help inside the community, the mutual help and support. And probably during the first Maidan there was less of these markers, during the second Maidan there were more, and now we kind of have the result of all of this work. So you think that our grants, the people who are working under our grants, do you think they surrendered? Do you think they have left the cities of the eastern Ukraine? No, they don't. They are going on the squares. And even in Kherson, before the occupants arrived there, before we had the shelling of the city, when they stayed in the bomb shelters in order to they were talking in the bomb shelters to the people. How do you make the territorial organizations, how to build up some networks? So it's an example of how do people, under such a critical circumstances, are able to provide this organization. So even under these harsh conditions, under these critical conditions, in order not to just think about the bombs, about the explosions, we should think about how we are going to live after all this ends. How do we organize our life? So your incentive program, Democratical Practice, was dedicated to teach people how to self-organize. So it looks like you will be void of bread, of the means of existence right now, because people are so self-organized and self-motivated. So maybe you will pay attention to other directions of work, other fields of work. No, I think nowadays the studies, it's not what we need first of all right now, and what is the fund відродження was dedicated to. Now we're switched on to some humanitarian needs, because and that was our mission first of all, this of the fund відродження, the development of the society awareness, the organization of the society, organization of the structures, how to build up the structures within the society. I'm very proud of our Ukrainian people. I'm not worried at all about my job being taken away from me, but I think it's the marker of the matureness of the society, and I'm sure that we will win. We will win this war, and we will look for new possibilities for renewed Ukrainian society onto how to develop, how to reach new levels of development. And now we just switched on to another activities at this moment, but the war dictates its requirements. So yes, every day I have to ask somebody on decentralization, on our reform. So I think people are being taught on how to take responsibility on their places for their lives. And of course, starting from 2014, the responsibility on our local communities has grown. Yes, I totally agree with what you're saying. Yes, we can have a long discussion for a couple of hours on how to work on this local awareness, decentralization of the regions. But the communities have to understand they influence their own lives. They're capable on organizing their work. So these costs, these funds we have, the communities have, the funds they are earning, they have to learn how to manage these funds locally, and now people understand they have something to be worried about, something to protect. So little by little we were moving forward to establish the system on place, on the districts. And the question of the democracy itself, the local democracy, probably it wasn't on the first place. Therefore, the funds like ours was helping in a way to develop this democracy. Because for governments, for the local governments, first of all, they were a question of the finances, the question of the territorial administration, and to rebuild the administrations, the local administrations, taking into consideration of all of these factors was one question, and now we see this. We can see this synergy. That, for example, there was 100 million hryvnias provided for supporting the refugees from different regions of Ukraine to purchase the equipment or some materials which are needed right now for the city protection, for the functioning of public utilities, even if we're thinking about the trash. And if we're talking right now about Lviv, where dozens of people are fleeing, so the management, the waste management right now, it's of course the big question. So yes, these are the questions which are now need to be solved. And yes, of course, therefore we have this huge, we have this field of where the territorial government can be efficient. As we have this joke right now that coronavirus was very beneficial in that sense, because we were getting ready to this moment to how to organize our administration here in our region, even how to provide food, how to provide things for the refugees. Of course, we would prefer to have it in a different way, in a peaceful way, but we have what we have. So we had the possibility to test this system, how it works. Of course, this fund відродження, we were talking about the heads of the houses, which, for example, the chief of such residential area, who is in charge of 100,000 people, for example, could be now even more influential than mayor. So we've been checking the basements right now, so everything is clear, everything was prepared. So our society, our community showed itself from very nice perspective. Yes, I'm living in the house right now. It's in Kiev. It's 700 apartments. It's kind of a small building, but you can imagine it's more than 20,000 people. Not all the villages in Ukraine have this number of inhabitants, and I can see how are people self-organized, how do people take care of the apartments of their neighbors who had to leave. And also the apartments, in Bucha and in Irpin. So these cities that are now in the middle of the warfare zone, to take care about your neighbor's place. Is their light on or the gas on? To check on their condition. I'm patrolling my territory myself, the place where I live, my residential area, so you can understand what I'm talking about. And our OSBBS, it's the is also our achievement, and also the self-organization of the people, of the volunteers, who have nothing in common with the administration, but they understand that only with our common effort we will be able to provide the security of our condominiums and our territory. So a person said Ukraine is the unique country because the level of trust, it's now on that level that people are teaching militaries how to make, and police how to make Molotov cocktails. Also, I wanted to add something else, but looking into the future a bit. Our civilians, our inhabitants are now getting used to ourselves being responsible for our territories and condominiums. So after it's all over, sometimes we have a quite of this harmful activity-ish, let's say, of the locals in order not to have the anarchy. What do you think about that? You know what I mean? So when people are too active and people want to be responsible and they are getting used to that, they're getting used to dictate even their own rules to the local authorities. Yes, from one side I want to highlight that nobody canceled the democracy itself. First of all, according to the Constitution, it's even the substantial, the material thing, even if we're talking about the representatives. So I was deputy myself of the Odessa administration, regional administration. It was from 1994 to 1996. It was in my previous life, let's say. But what I want to say, and I'm convinced, totally convinced, that each thing could be balanced. Everything is good in moderation, and so the local administration of the civilians, of the inhabitants, if it's open to the collaboration with the territorial governments and it's with this condominium association, if the government is ready to support their incentives, I'm totally convinced that that was and is right now. But after the war it's over, and I believe, I'm convinced that we are going to win and everything is going to be fine here. But once it's all over, we are going to have here, yes, for sure, we will have to manage this energy, be able to manage this energy, this rising energy, because to direct it in the right, to channelize it well into right direction. And lots of things will depend on the local governments, which will be responsible to maintain this healthy incentives from the civilians. So these condominium associations is going to be, so the governments will have to go directly to the people to discuss it with them, to be open for this discussion. Yes, so we will just have to learn how to deal with that, to work with self-organized people who can express this harmful activity, let's say, so to be able to channelize it into the right direction. But sometimes we have this issue that people are not quite aware of what they should do. And I really don't want to have these emotions even to when I see what's happening on Rynok Square, the center of the city. How the communication with the military authorities should be established right now. And for example, Mykolaiv, the head of Mykolaiv is into the close collaboration with the military authorities. But in Kherson, in Mykolaiv, for example, some of the cities there say themselves, are they occupied or not occupied? So how does the coordination between the local authorities and the military authorities on place should be working, should be coordinated? The model you're talking about in Mykolaiv, for example, the one that's functioning there right now, I think it's more acceptable for me right now under such circumstances. I think that each and one of us should be responsible for their fields, for their sectors, and for their responsibilities. If we're talking about public utilities or communal administrations or the schools, for example, the situation is very particular at the moment. But still we have some possibilities to get them involved in a way. Even the kindergartens in lots of cities of Ukraine, especially the people who had to move to leave their houses. So there is a big question about that. Even if we are talking about the waste management or some works that should be carried out at the moment. So coordination between the humanitarian issues or international organizations who are willing to help right now, who's going to coordinate this work between them? Even the spots of distribution, the center of the distribution of humanitarian help, the sphere which should be under control of local governments themselves. Regarding the military questions, it's a separate thing. So these are the matters under military government control. It's another question to the mayors and the heads of territorial associations. So the experts of regional fund Відродження, they're now getting even more close to us. Thank you very much for coming. Glory to Ukraine. And we're waiting for you to be interviewed in our studio after it's all over on how to organize the life on the territorial communities. The sports battalion is sport division. So we were talking about sport division. What's that and how they are working right now? Let's look our news. The boxer of national team of Ukraine, Василь Тишковець, is now serving the control checkpoint in Lviv. I was in Bulgaria. I was in Bulgaria on the competitions when it's all started, and I felt that I want to come home and be here to be helpful. And the Lviv sport department of the Lviv Training Sports Center of the summer sports, summer kinds of sport, it's now being joined onto the training center. The sportsmen and women are now taking part into the territorial defense. Lvivians who got the weapons and they are now defending their training camp. We are allowed to go home in the evening to take a shower, to have some rest. Girls have a bit lighter program, but we are now here defending our territory. Of course, before we were here, but we had a bit different duties. Of course, we had our sports camp was provided to other things, and we had the militaries who were carrying out some duties in here. So we had have the Olympic sportsmen here. 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a call that the war started, so I left my equipment at home, and I'm wearing my outfit at home, and I'm wearing what you can see now. We have different tasks. We have shifts. We are taking turns in order to have a rest, and girls also are taking care of the territory, being on guard. And today, men are wishing congratulating girls with the 8th of March. Going back to the studio of the First Western Channel, and we have our next guest. We have very active hour. We have a lot of guests. Victor Radulski here, the head of Commission of Agricultural Sector and Entrepreneurship and the Investments. And we are glad that you're you have a doctorate in economical sciences. Glory to you, Claire. Glory to heroes. Yesterday you published your address to chains of superstores, of the stores in Lviv, retailers, in order for them to keep our stores full, because what we can see now, it's a lack of some supplies, which was their reaction. Why did you decide to address to them as a deputy of Lviv Municipal Council? We had negotiations with them. We had a meeting last week, and our first question was about payment, because of course lots of the stores are working with 60 days payment. And so now it's a big issue, how to keep the warehouses full, and we see there is not a big change right now. But the issue we have right now is these chain stores not being flexible at this moment, because lots of them have their head management in Kyiv. Now we can see that the SMEs, they are more effective at this moment. And the local suppliers here in Lviv, they're now very responsive. The issue with Ashan we had, for example, their central office in the Boryspil, their warehouses are there, so they are now, the chains of logistics supplies are cut at this moment. And for example, the Rosan Park, the supplier of the plates, paper plates, and they have the issue with the delivery of the raw material. Also, there is an issue of the payment from the clients. So all this chain of the supply and delivery was broken, and now it should be replaced with the imports. So do we have this option of the replacement with imported raw material? Yes, as you brought this matter on, for example, the dishes, we see how we are now providing, we are in a much need of the plates and the cups, for example, the paper plates and cups. And we have this list, because we have a lot of refugees coming here, we have to provide the centers, but we lack the raw material in order to produce such things. So we have to send the petitions and the orders, and of course to organize the payment on time. Yes, we have we have the production, but our manufacturers don't have possibility, or they cannot find the suppliers that quickly. And all the people, all the suppliers abroad, they want the prepayment right now. And we have of course, we have this issue with the international payments. Lviv Regional Military Administration at this moment is providing us some consultations, but the humanitarian convoys, the ones that bring things from abroad, we should address to them right now in order to cover the gaps in our supply. And all the manufacturers right now, of course, they are highly responsible. They are aware of this situation and they are doing whatever they can. But of course, they lack this raw materials. We have this also in Odessa. Factory of the food. Yes, they can provide food, but they lack of tin, for example, in order to manufacture cans. The ministry right now also is getting involved, so we now have this awareness on the state level. Now people are ready to even work on the factories for three shifts. But also our local manufacturers, they have to, we don't know how, for example, we can replace the tin, the cans with, for example, the bottles or something like that. I don't know how it works, which are the possibility of substitution of one raw materials with another. But of course, to the places where there are war actions right now, we cannot provide probably in the glass or something. And in Shuvar, for example, the director of Shuvar we want to thank them because they provide a lot of humanitarian help and help for our military, for armed forces. So in this local level, it's better, and we have more space for maneuver.
Well, the question is, they may be supplying their goods, but you understand that if drivers don't want to go here from abroad, they're not allowed to cross the Ukrainian border. Then that means that we need to make hubs in Poland and then bring things from there, and then we would need the drivers who would do that. It's necessary to adopt the decision for the drivers aged 18 to 60 to be allowed to cross the border to bring the goods, because that might help us send our trucks there and then bring the goods here. So you've been talking about humanitarian cargoes, and you can't stock shelves in the stores there. Of course, business should start operating, business should work, and we need to work in those conditions we have at the moment. So this is a period, an indefinite period. I don't want to predict what will happen, because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. No one knows whether their business will exist tomorrow and who will be their audience tomorrow. So we need to work at the moment, cater for the needs of the army, try to modernize the companies and produce something. Well, some people are just feel lost and they are waiting and looking what's happening. Other people think that their business is not relevant at the moment because these things are not needed at the moment. They need to adjust to the situation. Well, even when we talk about retail industry, many people have left. Some of them have been mobilized and then went to the army, and women have left the country, for example. But on the other hand, we have the internally displaced people who can work there. It's only 15% of labor force that's been lost by local enterprises, people who were mobilized or people who went abroad. So we have the replacement. It's just necessary to have to employ these people. So you've been talking to business people and to entrepreneurs who keeps working, and what do they produce in the region? Well, for example, when we talk about flour, people call and they say, we have wheat, we'll mill it, and until we have the stock, so we will do it, and we will provide it to the armed forces. So this is socially responsible business, and even those chains, they also provide a lot. And everything we have in Lviv, this is our internal humanitarian support from private people, from social business, from entrepreneurs. So nothing is being bought. So this is what holds the whole country together. I asked a doctor of economy about the population of the Lviv region. So basically we have twice as many people as we used to have, and today Sadovoi mentioned that we have like 200,000 people who stayed here. This is like 1/5 of the Lviv community, so our community increased by 1/5, and of course this means that there is an increased demand for certain categories of goods, at least when we talk about food products and about hygiene products. On the other hand, there's not enough food products because the warehouses are closed. So when will we encounter this critical situation that some have been talking about, not only in the regions which are blocked and cannot leave anywhere, where you cannot bring the humanitarian cargoes, but what about Lviv? Can we have a critical situation like that? We are witnessing the deficit, the lack of certain goods, like for example buckwheat and rice and other grits. So it's felt already, and I'm sure that large entrepreneurs, large chains will reorient themselves at Europe, and they will import goods from Europe, but we will feel this. Aren't we trapping ourselves, even at the all-Ukrainian level, when we talk about Lviv region? Why everyone is actually looking at Lviv? Well, nothing is taking place in the region, and there are 9 regions that have no problems there. Well, some airports have been bombed, right? Yes. 3 other regions had some minimum attempts, but nothing is happening at the moment. So basically, half of the regions in Ukraine can operate in terms of business, but 74% of businesses have stopped their operation. Are they just waiting to see what will happen in a week or 2 and they will come back, or is it something else? Well, people are just at a loss. They are afraid that the enemy will advance, and Lviv region is logistically very conveniently located. It's a logistical hub. For example, in the Lviv region, there is a threat from Belarus, and there will be this threat pending. They have been trying to reinforce themselves, but still. Then Ternopil and Khmelnytsk region, they had these airstrikes to their airports that they have, and all trains, they come to Lviv, and then they go to the Transcarpathian region and to Poland and so on and so forth. So we have that most internally displaced people came here. I think that the railway has to change its logistics and to go somewhere else. So Volyn region is actually ready, and our Czech hedgehogs that we did, well, we feel that there may be a strike there, and I really am concerned about the community, because now about the crops, the central and eastern Ukraine will not plant, it will not sow anything. Even if the war stops tomorrow, it will still be problematic, but it will be necessary to get rid of all those broken equipment, of the vehicles, of the dead bodies. So, well, what can we do to prevent humanitarian crisis here, and also to prevent the problem with the export? Well, that will be a problem for the whole world, because ours is the 10% of the total export to the world, and this is a big problem. And before this meeting with us, we have nowhere to sow. No one is going to do that because of the risk that we have. Then the fuel is also a problem, because the United States are planning to introduce the embargo on oil, and that means that oil prices will increase again. This is a huge problem, and we want to plan something for the future, but our most important problem now is to defend the country, and then we'll think about it. So I've heard that the U.S. is negotiating with Venezuela for them to provide oil and gas to the general market so that the prices don't increase. And Iran as well. Well, the negotiations will be longer with them. Can we actually somehow incentivize the increase of production so that we have our own market to provide for more products? Well, they see it themselves, and we have these calls to realize that the region will be different. It will be not only a tourist region. We need to have many production facilities here. We are sure that Ukraine will win, but many people will stay in the region for a long time, and we need to use these labor resources. So we have to be the driver of economy and start thinking about industrial production. You see, the members of the regional council wanted to start organizing some industrial committee, so they should have organized an agricultural committee there. And with our previous guest, we discussed the matter that the coronavirus and decentralization actually prepared us for conditions we have right now. So we have tested the decentralization and the ability to self-organize, and now we also have to test ourselves. Each and every one of us has a piece of land somewhere, so we will use it not to have rest, but to plant something and to sow something, to plant trees. That's our reality right now. Yeah, my wife told me, well, let's plant something next to our house. I wouldn't listen to her. Now the oil bases, they are blown up. We have Drohobych oil refinery, and what's its condition, and can it will start operating more quickly, and can they use some other types of oil there? Well, I wish they could, but whether it's possible, I'm not sure about the conditions there, because it's been privately owned for a long period of time, and I know that they have been doing something, but I'm not sure what they did. It's a question to their owners. I wish they worked to their fullest potential. If you know any information about that, please tell us, because people are very much interested in that. Well, the same question is interesting in terms of the other businesses which worked for export mainly, and now they have to work for local market. This may be a very good time for local entrepreneurs. The owner of the tin factory wanted to close it, and now it can get a new lease of life. We are thinking about the future in Rohatin, which is in the neighboring district. They also have some production facilities. These are possibilities we can use and we have to use. Some people can transform, adjust, act quickly and manage quickly, and in these conditions, these people may even gain something. This was the deputy of the Lviv Regional Council, in charge of the matters on agricultural matters, doctor of economic sciences, and I wanted to ask you about the students. So what happens to them? Well, I've heard that starting from Monday we may resume the study process online. Well, maybe online, maybe on-site, like 50-50, because we still have to keep living. Well, what else do we have to do? Before the study resumes, you can watch the interview with Mr. Paskov from the Department of Education of the Lviv region. Go to our YouTube channel, find this interview there. Thank you for finding the time to come here, and please inform us about any changes in the economy of the region. And we'll now make a break until 6 p.m. and before that we would like to show you another meme that can improve your mood. This is a picture with our commander-in-chief, we burned another convoy. Everything was burning. Even the tanks? Yes, even the tanks. So the enemy will not be able to occupy Ukraine. We do guarantee this because we are sure of the powers of our defenders, and we'll meet again at 6 p.m. So stay tuned.
Замість рингу на КПП боксер збірної України Андрій Тишковець несе службу на пропускному пункті у Львові.
Я був в Болгарії на змаганнях і от тільки приїхав, і так вже останні дні вже взагалі було не до змагань, вже хотілося додому, сюди на Україну. І в принципі, я чесно скажу, я щасливий, що я приїхав.
Тим часом у приміщенні роти навчально-спортивної бази літніх видів спорту у Львові шикування.
Пане полковнику, особовий склад навчально-спортивної бази літніх видів спорту вишукано. Заступник начальника майор Вох. Слава Україні! Героям слава!
До складу збірних команд України з різних видів спорту належать 545 представників Збройних сил України. Львівські спортсмени-військові з першого дня війни отримали табельну зброю і охороняють свою навчально-спортивну базу.
Цілодобово чергуємо, додому відпускають відіспатись, помитись, відпочити трохи і знову заступаємо в наряд. Дівчат трошки легша програма, зрозуміло, що хлопці всі нон-стопом заступають в добові наряди, патрулюємо територію.
Раніше спортсмени-військовослужбовці теж ходили в наряди та несли службу на спортивній базі, але мали інші завдання.
До них було особливе ставлення, особливі умови, ми надавали спортивну базу, і вони займалися своїм безпосереднім завданням. Інші військовослужбовці, строковики ходили в ці наряди.
Серед військовослужбовців навчально-спортивної бази